Hello everyone, I'm day weather meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this January 8th, 2022. Happy New Year, everybody. It's being brought to you by WSR Insurance Services Incorporated and Ag Risk Advisors. As we take a look at what's coming up this week, there's going to be a break in the western weather briefly into early next week. It's been a very busy pattern, as we all know. It's been extremely productive with western precipitation, especially the mountain snowpack. But we get a break. There's going to be some high pressure and a pause in the winter weather. It's just a pause. It'll come back, but a pause that may be welcome for many of you. A pattern change late next week, back to colder and wetter conditions will be likely. The snowpack improvement continues. We showed you last week how snowpacks improved. They've gotten even better. Let's take a look at that. This was the snowpack number. The snowpack numbers across the Intermountain West as of December 17th. You can see that we had a lot of orange and red and yellows, which meant snowpack conditions that were 89% or less. But look at the change. Look how many of these colors have gone from orange and red and yellow to greens and blues. Just a remarkable change, remarkable improvement in snowpacks. All of Oregon, all of Idaho, and all of Washington State, all of Nevada and into Utah have snowpacks above average, every drainage. And we have some really big snowpacks growing in parts of Wyoming and Nebraska, rather Wyoming and Colorado, even into northern Arizona and into New Mexico. There's been some big improvements. So this is quite encouraging. When you have a big increase in snowpack like this, it's not only raining and snowing in the high country, but getting some precipitation down low. And here it is. Over the last week, you can see the precipitation, while spotty east of the Continental Divide and not as extensive. Well, at least there's been some out on the plains, but you can see it's been a very wet pattern again for another week. And here are the precipitation anomalies for the past week, with the wettest area here really focused in on the higher terrain of the west. As we take a look at the drought monitor, well, we continue to have improvements. There's a lot less red in the far western states and into the Great Basin, especially here. This has really been some big improvements. Now we'll show you that closer in the high plains and central Rockies, the western slopes of Colorado and Wyoming showing some improvements up into South Dakota and North Dakota as well. And then look at these continued improvements in California and across all of the western areas of the U.S. That big increase in snowpack has really helped those drought numbers. Now going forward, this is what we're going to show you here at the beginning of our forecast period. We do have another wave, another trough right here coming into the Pacific Northwest and Rockies at the start of the weekend. It's not going to be a big storm, but it is going to produce more snow in the high country, boosting that snowpack a little bit more. Also, the Arctic air, which has been paying a visit to parts of the Pacific Northwest, especially Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and parts of Nebraska and Colorado, well, that Arctic air is going to retreat. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow the weather by the middle of this weekend into the middle of next week to be warmer and drier across the Intermountain West, the West Coast, and the Pacific Northwest. So for you livestock interests that have been really busy fighting the weather for the last few weeks, you get to catch your break here. Get to catch a break. Take advantage of it, because we're probably going back to an active pattern again. This is by next Saturday, the 15th. What happens is we start to see the jet stream curve up to the north again into the Pacific, and this is going to allow storm systems to start coming in out of the northwest again. So by next weekend and after next weekend, we will start to trend stormier and colder and possibly wet again, especially in the Pacific Northwest and the central and northern Rockies. Now, initially, the coldest Arctic air will be headed towards the Great Lakes, the East Coast, and parts of the Midwest. But later in the forecast period, some of this Arctic air, I think, will extend a little bit further south and west after the weekend of the 15th or shortly thereafter. The 7-day precipitation forecast isn't as wet as it's been, but by late next week, notice this area of moisture right here. This is part of a low coming in out of California, and you can see the Rockies of Montana and Idaho and British Columbia. then into Northern California, Washington, and Oregon, they start to get into the act as well, with precipitation increasing. This is what the snowfall looks like over the next 7 days as well. As you can see, the lower elevations not going to get much. It's going to be the mountain areas impacted the most. Although by late next week and next weekend, some parts of Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and maybe Montana, and the western Dakotas and western Nebraska could be looking at some precipitation chances beginning to increase. Over the next 7 to 10 days, we do get a bit of a chinook east of the Rockies here. You see these orange colors? Well, this means that over the next 7 days, temperatures on average will be a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit above normal. But into the Great Basin and back into eastern Oregon, Washington, into the Central Valley of California, it is going to be, not a lot, but it is going to be a little colder than normal, as high pressure that's going to build in this fair weather pattern will trap some of the cool air into the basins and valleys of the far west. As we get into next week, this blue line right here, that Arctic air, will start to push back west and south again. In the meantime, what you want to do is enjoy this little break in the weather that's coming this weekend through the middle of next week. Our next update will be the 15th. Have a good week ahead, everyone.